Hey, welcome to Stuff to Blow Your Mind Trailer Talk. My name's Robert Lamb.
I'm Christian Sager.
And I'm Joe McCormick, and we are the hosts of the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, a science podcast that looks into the weirdness of reality, tries to peel back the curtain a little bit and show you on a lot of topics you might have heard about in your everyday life. There's more than you thought. And one of those topics is what we're going to be talking about this week. It is the Uncanny Valley. You've probably heard of it, but we're gonna get into the grittiness and the pain of this wonderful concept.
Did 2 episodes on the Uncanny Valley this
Yes.
week. So this is not just promoting one episode, it's a 2-parter. This was such a deep episode that it needed, I'm assuming, like 3 hours worth of conversation.
Well, it's a deep valley. And so the first episode is us descending into the Uncanny Valley. And then the second episode is ascending the far side and emerging in this frightening new world.
I've seen this, so I'm going to, because I didn't do the research for this episode, I will be with you, the audience, and I will kind of go along and learn from what you guys know about this.
Okay,
So,
well, first let's introduce what we're doing here. So we are the hosts of the podcast, Stuff to Blow Your Mind. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, you can go check it out.
What is it? StuffToBlowYourMind.com, right?
Yep, there it is.
Right over here.
Okay. Yeah, go to our website, StuffToBlowYourMind.com, or you can look us up wherever you get your podcasts on Spotify, Google Play, or iTunes, and hit that subscribe button so you always get the new stuff we're putting out. But we're an audio podcast, and usually on Fridays we come here to talk about the movies that come up in our discussion, because for some reason movies always come up. I think we're people who have wasted too much of our lives sitting in front of screens.
Well, like you say, we talk about the weirdness of reality, and then what better way to illustrate the weirdness of reality than by looking at some often terrible films.
So we
lovely dental bar.
well, I guess we should start by explaining the basic concept of the Uncanny Valley if you're unfamiliar with it. Now, you've probably heard the term. It sort of filters down into the popular consciousness. It's something you've heard of it, Christian.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like most people have heard of it at this point.
I actually did a comic called The Uncanny Valley.
Oh, really?
I did, yeah, but it was about a world where everybody's a clown.
Oh, yeah, clowns.
Okay.
I could see them falling into the uncanny. Now, oftentimes, though, uncanny is going to basically come down to robots or CGI individuals. Right now, we're looking at some footage that involves robotics and what happens when a robotic humanoid doesn't quite match up to the high standards set by an actual living human.
Now, if you want to hear the full discussion, of course, you can go check out our audio podcast. But the basic idea is that the original concept of the Uncanny Valley comes from a Japanese roboticist named Masahiro Mori, and he wrote in a paper in 1970 speculating. It wasn't really like rigorous research or anything. He just sort of put a hypothesis out there, and it was that as robots become more like humans, more realistically human, our affinity for them, our how much we like them and relate to them, will go up. But then at a certain point, they become too close.
Yeah, there's
to
an
human.
actual chart. Right?
Yeah, let's see if we can pull that chart up. Here it is. Yeah.
And once they become too close to human, our affinity for them stops going up, and it plunges into the negative range, where we no longer relate to them.
Oh, my hand disappeared.
We find it revolting, and it's just awful. Yeah. And then finally, of course, there is a second slope that goes up very steeply to what you would consider a totally realistic human. Somebody who looks like a real person.
The idea there, okay, it's not just real people. It's actually like the technology's gotten so good that we can't distinguish them from real people.
That's what he hypothesized. I mean, if you literally can't tell the difference between a robot and a real person, then the robot probably shouldn't bother you aesthetically.
Okay.
But there's this valley he predicted. It's where you get too close to real, but you're not real yet, and we find this revolting.
And it's interesting that we ended up using The Thing here as the backdrop for the graphic. Not that we're going to watch the excellent trailer for John Carpenter's The Thing here today, but this is a film that involves the replication of the human form and what happens, like the terrible things that can happen when you have a perfect representation of a human by some sort of artificial player.
And we will get into that in the second episode of the podcast, actually.
Yeah, that one just published Thursday. So both episodes are up at StuffToBlowYourMind.com.
So just in case you're just now joining us, this is the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast. We're doing our regular Friday trailer talk thing, where we talk about, specifically this week's episode is about the Uncanny Valley. I do want to ask people if you've got comments, specifically, what instances do you remember where the Uncanny Valley was triggered for you? So a movie, or maybe you saw a video of a robot or something that was on YouTube, or maybe it was like a coworker. You looked over and you were just like, whoa, that person looks too real.
No, now you say that, but there actually are charts I've found where people take Masahiro Mori's original chart and they put real human beings along the chart, which is funny because all real human beings should be at the top at the second
theoretically,
peak. But they say, there are some people, often it's like actors who have had a lot of plastic surgery or something like that.
Or people who just have some sort of disfigurement going on. Like one example we bring up in the podcast.
That's not very nice. But
It's not very nice, but take, for instance, someone who has like a severe cleft lip situation or a lazy eye. Like, these are individuals where there might be some sort of initial uncanny valley experience, but obviously if you were a functional human being, you're going to quickly get over any kind of initial reaction as you have a legitimate human contact with that individual.
I've been watching a lot of Legion lately. Have you guys watched Legion at all?
Just the first episode.
I don't know
it's so good.
What is it?
It's a show that Noah Hawley, who does the Fargo TV shows, did.
Oh, okay.
That is based on a D-list X-Men character. It's super good. I don't want to say anything other than that. It's really, really good. Very much like if you mix David Lynch and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind together.
Oh,
yeah.
Beautiful first episode.
But there's some effects in that that bring the uncanny valley.
So you see something that's supposed to look human, and you find it really unpleasant to look at, and you do not feel affinity for it.
Yeah.
And this is something that filmmakers can invoke intentionally to make you feel a little off, but they can also, generally what happens too is they fall short of delivering perfection. And we really have, I think, a patron saint of both of these categories.
Okay.
Craig brought up plastic surgery whenever he sees someone with...
Oh, yeah. Okay, so somebody named Craig mentioned in our Facebook comments that plastic surgery is one of the things that they notice. Yeah, so, like, when I think of this, I think of, Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner gives me a little bit of an uncanny valley effect.
You mean like has she had a lot of plastic surgery over the
years?
Yeah,
but I mean before transitioning, she had a lot of plastic surgery, and there's kind of a weird sort of...
I've seen people bring up Mickey Rourke.
Oh yeah, Mickey Rourke. You know what I'm also thinking of is in any of the Hannibal Lecter stuff, the Mason Verger character. You know how he's the guy who had his face chewed off by dogs, and when they rebuild his face, the way that it looks gives me the uncanny valley squeebies.
Yeah, and that's something to keep in mind with plastic surgery is that outside of cosmetic applications, it is about rebuilding tissue, and that is a very difficult thing to pull off. I think a lot of times you end up falling a little short of what came before, or at least short of the ideal.
But I suspect that's an interesting thing to remember is that we tend to, as a culture, want to kind of shame plastic surgery, but there are a lot of people who have had injuries and stuff like that where it's not really fair to shame.
It's
them
like what we talked about with sex bots last week. Yeah, very similar in that it's a thing that we kind of instantly have a stigma against, but there's a lot of therapeutic purposes.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But now one thing that I think we should feel much less qualms about shaming is bad CGI characters in movies.
Yes. So let's pull out our patron saint of bad CGI. Our embodiment of Uncanny Valley for both the good and bad.
Right. So throughout the episode, I think, Robert, I don't know if we even explained the idea of the movie The Lawnmower Man, but we did bring up the idea of a Lawnmower Man. Like here you are looking at a Lawnmower Man, and now I wonder, are there people out there who are too young to remember Lawnmower Man, who don't know what the deal with Lawnmower Man is?
I mean, I remember, I was in high school when this came out, and I definitely remember it. And like I was saying to you guys before this aired, I saw it back when it came out, so I must have been 14 maybe when this came out, 15. I don't remember anything about it other than what you're showing right here, the weird CGI.
Yeah, this was 1992, and this...
God, I guess I was like 6 or something, but I remember this on TV.
Yeah.
This is a terrible movie. Pierce Brosnan plays a brilliant scientist who works with virtual reality, and he takes a lawn care professional, played by Jeff Fahey, and he jams him into a virtual reality machine, which I guess through some kind of virtual reality game in combination with these weird injections, turns Jeff Fahey into this super intelligent, evil cyber god.
So that's supposed to be Jeff Fahey behind us right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
okay.
It's worth remembering this is based very, very loose, like almost not at all, on a Stephen King short story about a pagan, naked lawnmower guy who shows up and eats the grass in your backyard.
Which we remember very fondly. I think that's a great short story.
It's a fun little crazy
almost no relation whatsoever.
Yeah, nothing.
Really, the only relation is the title and the fact that a guy who operates a lawnmower at one point kills people.
I was really hoping Jeff Fahey would crawl around in the backyard naked eating grass.
Now, one thing about this movie is it was directed by this guy named Brett Leonard, who I didn't know much about, but I looked him up. He also directed another virtual reality panic movie in the 1990s, the movie Virtuosity.
Oh,
you guys remember?
Is that the one with Michael Keaton?
No, I think it's got Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe has blue blood.
Yeah, Russell Crowe plays like a virtual reality serial killer.
Isn't he like a combination of all serial killers or something like that?
He's in a virtual reality simulator that's designed to train cops.
Yeah.
And then he comes into the real world.
Wow, that movie.
Yeah. But also I found out Leonard directed some Billy Idol music videos, including one for a song called Shock to the System, which this guy obviously had like one thing, because I looked up this music video and it's this like dystopian cyberpunk Billy Idol music video.
Okay, so this guy was like a pioneer of that kind of cyberpunk style. Sort of like William Gibson, but with film instead of with prose.
The poor man's William Gibson. Now, one of the
sorry if you're watching.
Now, one of the things about this is that the first Lawnmower Man again stars a measly Pierce Brosnan and a Jeff Fahey. But the sequel features, in my opinion, the superior pairing of Patrick Bergin and Matt Frewer.
Matt Frewer's so good.
Yeah. And
I can just imagine him in this.
Oh, yeah,
he sounds like
great.
Jim Carrey
especially,
in the trailer.
Especially
but he looks
because
pretty
he did
phenomenal.
Mad Max. Mad Max, sorry. Max Headroom.
Yes, Max Headroom. They definitely lean into that.
Yeah.
And it also features... let's see, Kevin Conway, who did the voice of Batman and Batman Animated Series, and Molly
you're thinking
Shannon.
of Kevin Conroy. Kevin Conroy.
Who's Kevin Conroy? Oh, okay, I got the wrong guy then, I guess.
Kevin Conroy is the voice of Batman.
Kevin
in the
Conway
series.
is Ramsey's cousin.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. All right, sorry, Batman fans. I had my information off on that, but. The visuals in the second one I think hold up a little better, and the second one's kind of the poor man's Hellraiser Bloodlines.
Oh, I love Hellraiser Bloodlines. Tell me more. No, we'll talk about it off air.
But yeah, anyway, so if you're looking at the CGI characters here, one of the things is that you should notice the way our adaptation to imagery changes over time.
Yeah.
So in 1992, I think a lot of people might have looked at this and said, like, wow, that looks really cool. I mean, that looks amazing. And now it's hilarious. So just keep that in mind as we discuss some principles about the Uncanny Valley moving forward. But let's take a look at another great example. This is one I picked to talk about in the podcast.
Oh, man.
It's 2001's The Mummy Returns. So this is the sequel to the Stephen Sommers' The Mummy.
I never saw this. The first movie made me so angry that I just walked out like in an utter tizzy, and then I never went and saw this.
I think the first one had a lot of bad CGI in it, too.
Yeah.
And when we say bad CGI, that's retrospective. I don't know what I would have thought about it
But
at the
this
time.
is, let's think about this for a minute here. This is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as a half-scorpion centaur.
Right.
Mm-hmm. He looks better now than he does there.
Well, of course he does. No, I mean, here... It looks
16 years later.
The way I tried to describe it is, it's hard to capture what looks wrong with him, but it looks to me like they took The Rock and then they skinned him, and they took his skin and they did a bunch of stuff to it, like they boiled it and tanned it and did some chemical treatments and rubbed it down with something kind of shiny and then put it over somebody else's body.
It's like the Buffalo Bill version of The Rock, like if Buffalo Bill was wearing The Rock's skin as a suit.
And there's something very wrong
and then
with
also
his facial expressions.
Scorpion.
Like his eyes are weird. He just it doesn't look right. And this is what we get into with the concept of the Uncanny Valley. Now, we should mention in the episode, we get into all kinds of scientific research about whether the Uncanny Valley actually exists.
Right.
Now, how could you be asking that question
when everybody
watches it. Now, the answer to it is that there is definitely something going on with humanoid-looking, synthetically generated imagery, like humanoid robots or these CGI humanoid characters, but it might not be as simple as that two-dimensional graph we saw earlier.
Yeah.
There might actually be a lot more dimensions going on in the Uncanny Valley that are influencing whether we find human imagery acceptable or not.
Do you find that imagery acceptable?
I find it highly acceptable.
I would kick him out of bed for eating crackers. Look at that. He should look like that in Fast and the Furious 8 coming to a theater near you.
The craziest thing about that is he legit looks so cool. I'm not even joking. Like, it's like he is so cool, he makes that work.
Yeah, he makes you question everything you think you know about fanny packs.
But what if we found out that this wasn't real, that this was entirely digitally recreated?
Well, with a still image, that's entirely possible. But it's
a napkin.
Oh yeah!
Oh, he's got his arm. He's
got his arms on napkins. Well, you know why that is because the Rock is constantly being lathered with baby oil, and so you have to put napkins down to absorb the excess baby oil through his clothing.
This reminds me of one tidbit though about the Mummy Returns here. So Vosloo, who plays
Arnold Vosloo,
who plays the Mummy, you know, he's so. He almost has a Judge Holden hairless quality to him, and it's because they had to. He didn't want to be waxed, so they had to shave his body twice a day during filming.
What? Are you making this up?
No, this is legitimate.
Is real?
This is pure IMDb.
But
so
hey,
it has to be true.
I want to say something here.
Okay,
we're talking about this as being a really bad example. That it's like such a bad example of trying to replicate humanity that it's upsetting, and yet. This movie got a sequel. He got his own spin-off movie, The Scorpion King.
Yeah.
So clearly some people dug it.
In The Scorpion King, it's mostly just him as an actor, being an actor. You know, they don't have a lot of the CGI, so they might have some of it. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I did see The Scorpion King in theaters. That was a night.
Now, you know, I want to throw in here, though, it's easy to hate on Stephen Sommers for this, for the G.I. Joe movie, but...
Also has The Rock in it.
Yeah.
He directed Van Helsing. I mean...
Yeah, but before all of this, he wrote and directed 1998's Deep Rising, which I think is really a super fun monster film with tentacles, Wes Studi, Jason Isaacs, Famke Janssen.
Wes Studi's in it?
Yeah,
really?
and Treat Williams, which I think there's something to celebrate in having like a thoroughly boring pretty boy actor in the lead of a monster movie and surrounded by superior character
actors. Is Deep Rising one of the ones where they're in like an underwater station and they're stuck?
Is it a killer squid?
Oh no, it's like you think it's a killer squid at first, but then it turns out that the tentacles have mouths, and it's like a Cthulhu-esque monster at the heart of the ship.
Whoa. But they're underwater, right?
They're in a boat.
Okay.
And there's like a crazy scene with a jet ski, and at the end of it, you think they've made it, they've escaped, and they land on this island, and it's a monster island, like they've crossed over into another dimension, like Stephen King's The Mist style.
Now I want to see this again.
Yeah, it's a super fun little. I think it's a gem of a monster movie for the time period.
So people might be just joining us. We should probably. They're seeing us rant and rave about Deep Rising, but. We are the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast. I'm Christian Sager. This is Robert Lamb. This is Joe McCormick. We do a weird science podcast. This week's episodes are all about the Uncanny Valley. So we are breaking down some Uncanny Valley science for you while watching weird movie trailers where the Uncanny Valley dipped a little too far.
Now, later on in this little event here, we're going to be talking about a very recent movie. We should go ahead and say what it is because I want to get people's comments in advance. What did you think about the CGI simulated actors in Rogue One?
We have had a lot of response from you, our audience, on Facebook and Twitter in the last week since these episodes just came out. Because a lot of people heard you guys talking about Rogue One on those episodes, and they were like, I didn't have a problem with it.
Well,
like
some said they did, and some said they didn't.
Yeah. So spoilers for Rogue One. They completely recreate Peter Cushing as a CGI character. He's been dead for, 20 years, 30 years? And they also do a youngified recreation of Princess Leia.
Yeah, but she gets far less screen time than Tarkin. Tarkin has dialogue with a living actor. And
so
a lot of people have issues with it.
We should allow you to leave comments about Rogue One if you want, and then maybe come back to that later.
Okay.
So let's go back first.
Oh wait, we have footage of Rogue One up here.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute.
We're going to talk about Rogue One?
I think we're
right.
going in. We're
We'll
committed.
just allow you to look.
Oh no, he's gone.
Okay.
You say CGI Tarkin's name 3 times.
I'm sorry to tease y'all. We'll come back to the CGI Tarkin, to the peak of Tarkin. In the
And remember,
Uncanny Valley.
our question for this episode is what movies or other experiences have you had where you've experienced the Uncanny Valley effect?
I would also ask, what do you think causes it? Because this is a big question for debate. So there's a lot of science about whether or not it actually exists. The results on that are mixed. There's some good evidence it does exist. There's some evidence that it doesn't, or at least that it doesn't exist in the naive original formulation, where it's just related to how realistically human you look. It's probably related to other things.
Yeah, for something that's invoked so often, especially just in popular culture, it's far less boiled down. We don't. Sure, we showed a really cool graphic earlier, but that graphic does not really stack up to experience.
Right. So let's get this next trailer going for the Polar Express.
Yes.
2004. Now, if you look up discussions of the Uncanny Valley online, this movie is almost definitely going to be mentioned because it's I'd say this generation's quintessential example of creepy humanoid characters being generated by computers.
And it doesn't have any redeemable qualities because Tom Hanks' character in this is not a villain or a monster, so you can't explain it away and say, "Oh, well, Rock Scorpion King is a demonic creature." It doesn't matter that he looks weird. This is the guy that's running Santa's railway line. He should not seem like an unholy demon, and yet, behold.
I also want to say that I loved this children's book. I mean, this is adapted from a and I'm not so much a sucker for children's books about Christmas. This book really makes Christmas time magical. It gets these themes of like being cozy in a kind of secret place in the dark and being warm when there's snow outside. All these like really good feelings people associate with Christmas. And it's so nice, and it's kind of wispy, and I don't know, it's got this wonderful dreamlike quality. The movie, I have not seen the movie, but I've watched the trailer, and these characters just look abominable.
So yeah, the best way to represent what you're talking about in moving pictures is to take a guy and make him wear Tom Hanks' skin.
I would say this movie could have been great if it had been traditional animation.
Or just
hand-drawn.
actors. Yeah.
Maybe, but hand-drawn animation. I mean, what's wrong with that?
Is this Spielberg? And my second follow-up question is this related to the work on the Tintin movie?
No, so this is Robert Zemeckis, who is a repeat offender, as we'll explore in a bit when it comes to creepy CGI.
Okay.
Now, I looked up right before we came on. I haven't confirmed this is true, but I think it was on IMDb. The trivia said that this movie, The Polar Express, is in the Guinness World Records. Oh, Ramsey here has put together some horrible winking and a little.
When it repeats like that, it's even worse.
But anyway, this movie is in the Guinness Book of World Records for being the first all-digital capture film, if that factoid is correct.
Okay.
Well,
so even the train, it was a real train. They just put some digital capture stuff on it.
They were pioneers, right? And pioneers are massacred. Isn't that the saying? And thus, everyone's reaction to this film.
I want to say another thing about this movie, which is that I realized it has a voice actor in it. It's got Eddie Deason as a voice actor in it. Now, most people know Eddie Deason as Eugene, the obsequious nerd from Grease. Okay. But I know him as Froggy, the obsequious nerd from Laser Blast.
Oh, that's the only thing I know him from. I don't think I've ever seen Grease. Oh, man. Laser Blast tie-in out of nowhere.
You remember in Laser Blast?
I think so, yeah. Laser Blast is so good.
Should we move on to another one?
Yes.
Sure.
Another Zemeckis crime.
Oh, this is also Zemeckis? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I saw a comment from one of our listeners that said they saw this movie and they didn't realize that the characters were CGI until Angelina Jolie showed up.
I don't know if to take that seriously or if they were joking, but I think that was the same listener of ours who said he actually has prosopagnosia.
Oh, right.
That's
right. Yeah.
Difficulty in processing facial imagery.
That's interesting to take into account. Yeah, that
actually makes these more fun for somebody like him.
It could, perhaps. So what's the deal? Y'all have seen the Beowulf movie.
I have not seen this.
Okay, I have. So
tell me about it.
This is a film that on paper should have been so great. You got Neil Gaiman. You got Roger Avery writing it.
I love Ray Winstone.
Yeah,
drink it.
Crispin Glover.
Yeah, doing motion capture for the monster Grindel.
Grindel, yeah.
And you know, I have to admit, like the story arc is kind of interesting. They do kind of a commentary on heroes in this.
Yeah.
So I think the screenplay is probably pretty good. It's just that you have so many human characters, and they all invoke that uncanny valley effect. And in my opinion, people will vary on this, but I also think that Grindel looks horrible in this, and not in a good horrible. Okay. I think he's just portrayed as this kind of shrieking thing. I don't know. I like my idea of Grindel as something more stealthy and probably furry. I always go back to the book Grindel.
The cover art on that.
Yeah, with the creature looking up into the sky. Who's the author of that?
Gardner.
Gardner, yes. Yeah. Fabulous book. And
John Gardner.
John Gardner, yeah.
Now, at
from
the
monster's
time
point of view
that this movie was made, Ray Winstone was not this age.
No.
I remember when this trailer first came out, and I was like, "Wait a minute, that's Ray Winstone's voice, but that guy looks like Charlie Hunnam." Like,
well, no, they didn't capture his full imagery.
Yeah,
it's just his voice.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people complained about the CGI in this movie. They said, you know, Uncanny Valley, like the humans are scarier than the monsters.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or they also complained about the monster. Like, there's a part where Angelina Jolie is supposed to look somewhat human, right? Mm-hmm. But they said apparently she looks very unpleasant, unreal, kind of...
But she's the monster's mother, so that's an example where we can say, all right, well, it's okay that she doesn't look human.
I don't buy that because I feel like I can tell the difference between intentional creepiness and unintentional creepiness. It's the same way that... Did you ever take a creative writing class with the guy who wrote something and you're like, I can't understand what's going on, and the guy's like, well, it's because the protagonist is insane. You're not supposed to be able to understand what's going on. That's
you
just
described
making.
Legion. You just described the TV show Legion.
I think it's also something that I notice in Quentin Tarantino movies. So increasingly, Tarantino movies are invoking this this older sort of B-movie cinematic style, and so you can have something like. I forget which movie is it. There's supposed to be a scene in Chattanooga, but I want to say it was...
it's in Django.
Django, yeah. So
I'm from Chattanooga.
And I've been to Chattanooga many times. It's close to Atlanta. And so it's supposed to be Chattanooga, but it's clearly not because they clearly shot it in New Orleans because you see the Spanish moss on the trees. Have you ever seen Spanish moss in Chattanooga?
It's not generally around.
So, but this is one of those examples where if you're going to nitpick, you can also explain away the nitpicking by saying, well, Tarantino's, he's talking about a legacy of films where you very often were shooting, in Italy and pretending that it was the Old West, and like I say, it doesn't really hold up, but you can sort of push the argument in that direction. And I think you can do something similar with Angelina Jolie's character. But you really can't do it for Beowulf, because Beowulf is a man.
Now, I want to ask you all a question.
Is Ray Winston. I would watch the hell out of this movie if it was like grizzled, older Ray Winston, just like, with actual Angelina Jolie. I almost said Actualina Jolie.
I thought for years that Beowulf could make a really great horror movie. Because it's got a thing that I think. It's got a thing that comes across. Well, have y'all seen the Christopher Lambert Beowulf?
Oh, the sci-fi? No.
That is intensely weird and bad. But I thought that it could make a great horror movie because there's this thing about it that is not well captured by many horror movies today. I'd say the thing that comes the closest is another movie I actually don't like, but it's Shyamalan's The Village. I'm not advocating the movie. I'm just saying the sense of like having a small ring of fire in the wilderness, and this is this small settlement is where you're safe. And that's how the mead hall should be in Beowulf. So Beowulf arrives, there's the mead hall, and it's this small place where you have fire and warmth and walls, and it's just surrounded by infinite darkness and wilderness. It's a time when the wilderness was not a place you go for fun. It's like a place that's full of evil magic and horrible creatures that'll kill you.
That's kind of how I feel about it now. But, I mean, I'm a little old-fashioned like
this
that.
pollen season
It might be that, yeah. So should we get to the granddaddy, the most recent offender, the one that we talked about earlier?
Yes, so we should take a look at Rogue One.
Yeah.
And I wonder, Ramsey, are there any comments yet about people's feelings about the CGI characters in Rogue One?
Yeah, I would specifically like to know, did the CGI characters in this movie bother you? And I'm not talking about the robots and stuff. I mean,
the real
Grand Moff
actors,
Tarkin and Princess Leia.
I want to give my 2 cents on this.
Oh yeah, you just saw this.
I finally just saw it. I'm one of those 3 or 4 people who waited till you could rent it to see it.
Yeah.
Because I don't get out to theaters that much. So I was fully. I had avoided spoilers for the most part, but I knew that a lot of people had a problem with Tarkin, and I knew that the actor has been dead forever. So there's only one way they're going to pull it off. And I have to say, it didn't bother me that much. There were a few scenes where he moves a little weird, and it kind of feels like he's a golem creature.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I didn't have a problem with it. And my wife, I was watching with her, and after the first scene with Tarkin, I paused it and I asked her, well, what do you think about that scene and the interaction of the actors? Because I could tell that she, she's not as much of a buff for old British actors like I am. So I knew she hadn't maybe picked up on the emphasis here. And she said, I thought it was fine. And then we started talking about how it was CGI. And she says she would not have necessarily noticed had it not been pointed out.
This is something we talk about in our second episode, where I don't want to spoil too much of what happens in the podcast, but we talk about the idea of what happens if you actually create humanoid imagery that's indistinguishable from real. We're obviously on the threshold where, with a lot of money and a lot of time and investment now, people can create images of humans or even moving video of humans
old Tarkin, though.
That is not distinguishable for some people. You can't tell it's not a real person. There are some reasons we might want to be kind of worried about this. Like, we live in a world right now where generally video evidence it's a gold standard. Like, if you have good-looking video evidence of something, you can be pretty sure it happened. I don't know if we want to go across the line of the Uncanny Valley where suddenly you can simulate Christian. I don't know, what would somebody simulate you doing that you wouldn't want them to?
War crimes.
Simulating Christian being a nice guy.
Yeah. War crimes. Yeah.
Attending a Nickelback concert.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, the evidence of me doing that would probably reflect poorly upon our brand.
But that also brings us to a thing. I wonder what y'all think about this. So in the episode, we talk about the idea that's put forward by a researcher who, oh my God, I think I've got her name right. I apologize if I'm not. I think her name is Angela Timwell.
Okay.
And she and some co-authors had a paper about, this was years ago, but it was about the idea of what's called an uncanny wall, as opposed to an uncanny valley where you dip down and then you can ascend the next slope. This proposes that as technology becomes better at generating synthetic human imagery, as we have more humanoid robots and more better-looking human, CGI human actors, our ability to pick up on the flaws increases along with the proficiency of the technology. So the better we get at making synthetic images, the better we are at spotting what's wrong with them. And so in that way, the final peak is never ascended. It's just a wall that you can't cross. It keeps moving.
Sure. Like, I think for me, it's a lot easier for me to spot this stuff because I spent time as a graphic designer for a while doing, like, touch-ups to photos and such. So, like, I have a better eye, I guess, than most people for, like, when things are blurred just the wrong way, or when, like, a shadow doesn't match where it would naturally fall or something.
I'm not a graphic designer at all, but I've noticed that, here's the thing, photoshopped images that would have fooled me 10 years ago, I instantly recognize as fake now. I feel pretty strongly that that's the case, and I don't know what changed. Like, I'm not really... I'm not a graphic designer. I'm not really proficient in this. I've had no training.
You've seen a lot of movies with CGI.
Well, or seeing a lot of fake images on the internet.
So your shields are up at all times. Your photon torpedoes are ready, but you're unprepared for the most part for the threat of completely realistic video footage, right, or digital video footage.
I guess so.
So, do we have any questions out there or comments?
Her name is Sheldine.
Oh yeah, I know her.
Sheldine.
She's a regular commenter.
She said the odd thing is that Avatar did not trigger the Uncanny Valley for her.
Oh, okay. So she
Avatar.
said that Avatar didn't trigger the Uncanny Valley for her. Yeah, me either.
Now this introduces an interesting question that I don't think we were able to answer in our episodes, but did come up briefly. So the original idea of the Uncanny Valley, as Maury proposed, was how realistically human does the robot look, or does the image look? So we've already said that it's probably more complicated than just that one dimension, but also how do other organisms come in? So is it just humanness, or could it be having to do with the realism of animal imagery that's not even human? Because the Na'vi in Avatar have these kind of feline qualities to them.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great point, because they're not human, they're inhuman enough that it kind of works. Now, somebody on Twitter brought up, well, what about a cat? Could a cat be uncanny in a film? And I
think somebody mentioned
yes.
Garfield, right?
Yeah, Garfield came up. I think it comes down to whatever the animal is. Do you have enough personal interaction with it? Do you have enough familiarity with it to where it could be triggered? Because if it were, say, a possum, like possums are always uncanny to me when I see them, because I don't spend a lot of time up close and personal with a possum.
I should have thought, if we can get this is the thing that's the ultimate uncanniness. This is worse than any robot. It's the Bush's Baked Beans commercials where there's a golden retriever or maybe it's not a golden retriever, it's a dog, and it talks and its mouth moves.
Oh yeah,
and that's that is just satanic evil to me.
But how do you feel about Mr. Ed?
Mr. Ed? Did his mouth move?
Oh, yeah, that was the whole thing, but it was real. They put peanut butter in his mouth so it would really move.
Okay,
and
that's
then they
different.
just recorded VO afterwards.
If you watch video of these Bush's Baked Beans commercials, they've got a dog talking, and it's got CGI mouth movements.
I know exactly what
that
you
is
mean.
just evil. You
well,
cannot do
because
that.
the mouth movements are human
about
mouth movements. That's the problem. Is like they know how to replicate human mouth movements if a human was talking. It looks so wrong on a dog's anatomy.
Yeah. Ugh. Just terrible.
Any other questions or comments? We're probably going to jump off in a minute here, but I want to make sure that we address everybody's concerns. Also, just so you know, we'll be paying attention to this video throughout the weekend. It'll be living on our Facebook page. We know that not everybody has the opportunity to watch it live at 11 a.m. on a Friday, so we'll be participating in the comments throughout the weekend as well.
All right.
Doesn't look like we got anything else. So we were going to show some other trailers, but we didn't get time for it. But we were going to talk about Howard the Duck.
Right. Well, that would come into the same question as the Na'vi, because he's got
I never
duck
had
features,
the problem Howard the Duck. Yeah.
Human features, but he's got kind of human eyes. It's a little creepy.
How did you feel about the naked, topless girl duck on the Duck Planet in Howard the Duck?
I remember I was quite shocked by that scene as a child.
Yeah.
It should not be spoken of.
Because ducks shouldn't have breasts, even if they're...
Yeah, my son knows that.
Yeah.
They're not mammals. Get out of here with those breasts.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's pulling in from comics, I guess, right? A certain kind of cartoonish imagery. But the problem is, like, you're taking this cartoonish imagery that might be funny when it's hand-drawn, but it is not so funny when you see it in person in, like, real live action.
You know, I gotta say, love this movie.
I finally.
I know there's so many people hate this movie, but I love it.
There's some fabulous stop-motion monster.
This is George Lucas, by the way, if you don't know.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, less than 5 seconds in the film, I think, right? But it is still one of the weirdest things. And then we were also going to talk about Garbage Pail Kids, which is another reliquary from the 90s, another religious artifact.
I've never seen this movie, but I will give you the fact that these humanoid-looking puppets are really disturbing and unpleasant.
But this is like when you see one of those people wearing the baby head masks. You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen those? Like the weird
Brazil
masks? Yeah. No, yeah, they're similar to that, but like the present-day ones that you can buy on like Amazon. That's what this looks like to me.
Now, one fun thing about this is that Mackenzie Aston is in this, the younger brother of Sam
Astin.
the Hobbit, Sean Astin.
Yeah.
And Mackenzie currently plays the avatar of the evil trickster god Reynard the Fox on Sci-Fi's excellent The Magicians.
We've got to get this off the screen. This is just too bad.
So you guys are getting really freaked out by this, huh? How would you raise a Garbage Pail Kid?
You don't. You just
is
leave
that
them
the
alone.
problem?
They're perpetual
Just
children.
they're abandoned?
Always gross and always...
Man, what a depressing way to end. Well, we're the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast. If you want to hear about abandoning children that don't look human enough, listen to our podcast. No, I'm just kidding. We're a weird science podcast. Please subscribe to the show. Come check it out. Come check out these episodes on the Uncanny Valley that we had this week. Next week, we're going to be talking about bats and demon belief, which should be a fun combination of trailers.
Yeah, who knows what we'll
sure
bring up for that
that's gonna
one.
go.
That's going to be fun selecting trailers for.
Yeah. So, and hey, if you want to add a comment after the video's over, that's cool too. Ask us any questions. We'll hop in and answer.
Thanks for joining.
He learned almost too late that man is a feeling creature. And because of it, the greatest in the universe. And he learned too late for himself that men have to find their own way to make their own mistakes. There can't be any gift of perfection from outside ourselves. And when men seek such perfection, they find only death, fire, loss, disillusionment, and the end of everything that's gone forward. Men have always sought an end to toil and misery. If it can't be given, it has to be achieved. There is hope, but it has to come from inside, from man himself. He learned almost too late that man is a feeling creature. And because of it, the greatest in the universe.